we have decided to do a way too early leader sequencing. Though I don't know how early it is because I've been playing with a lot of the leaders, not all of them. I haven't actually been able to put rows on the table yet, but I've been playing with a lot of the leaders, and I thought it would be a good idea to actually sit down, talk a little bit about them, see where we feel they flesh out, and then we can kind of go from there. All right, welcome to our way too early leader rankings. I thought it would be fun to do some of these. Alex always gives me shit about it, but him and I always have a good, long, spirited debate about some of them. This time, though, I don't know. There's not as many leaders I think that we are going to argue over comparatively to like last time. Last time we did it, there was some contention between a couple of leaders. So this time,
you guys are putting Chancellor Palpatine in like S tier. Gross.
Well, maybe we were a little wrong on that. But anyway, we do have we are going to do that tonight. Thought it would be kind of fun. So what we'll do is we'll just kind of do like round robin. Like each of us will pick a leader. We'll talk a brief amount, not a whole hour, about one leader. We'll talk a brief amount about the leader, why we think it should go in a tier, and then we'll each have a turn to kind of like we'll rotate going through and saying yes, no, that can go there, it can't go there. So when JJ decides to put Holdo as an S tier, we could just immediately move that down. I can already feel JJ's juju coming through here. So, who wants to go? Who wants to go first? Because one of you all want to go first.
You know what? I'll go first, and I am going to pick Holdo, and I'm going to put her as a firm C because you got to pay a resource for her ability, and yeah, it does give a resistance unit or a resistance subclade a +2/+2, which can be very strong, but we just don't have enough resistance units to really make it a very, very effective for it. She will get better over time as we get more units to really help buff her ability, but right now she's just at a C. We do have some very good resistance cards currently that she can really take advantage of, but it's not enough to be competitive compared to some of the other decks that can get going much faster and are not hogging as much resources as she would be. So for that, I'm putting her at a C.
Wow. I would have her firmly in D tier. It does come with a small caveat of maybe there's going to be a lot more crazy resistance cards, maybe spoiled in like the next 75 or whatever we have left over. But man, I think she's pretty slow. It's just you pay the resource, get the +2/+2. It's kind of like Wat Tambor, right? We have to spend one, but your unit doesn't have to die. But she comes out on 6. She's not a pilot. She's a 3/8. She doesn't have like a restore or anything. So she just seems a little bit too slow. And I'm probably more disappointed with her than any other leader this set.
Yeah, because she has the opportunity to be the best, but nope. I'm more in your camp. I think she is at minimum. She would be high or the lowest C that we have. That's like the minimum. So for now, I'm going to put her in D, and we can. If we have a bunch of Ds, we could bump her up. But I agree with you, Alex. I don't see the. Typically, we get like 11 to 15-ish cards that interact with different like things like that, and I just don't foresee us getting enough to make her valuable.
Yeah, again, if we get like a crazy amount of really good resistance cards, maybe she'll go better higher up. I'm still not entirely convinced, but it's a possibility.
Yeah. All right, Alex, you're up next. I'll let you pick next.
This hurts me too. I only have 2 leaders in D tier, personally, and we're gonna go with the other one. And this hurts. It's
Lando.
It's Lando. Yeah. It's just because he comes out on 7. I mean, the stats are huge, but they're not as big as you'd expect because he's +5/+5 is also what Vader gives out. Initially, +5/+5 seemed really big, and Sentinel's really nice. And, shield tokens are good. I don't think it's hard to trigger his ability too much. I just think I kind of would rather run someone else. I don't know. He might have more potential. I just think the game might be a little bit too fast for him to like come out and stabilize everything. Because like Obi-Wan does that. He comes out, he stabilizes the board. It's just a big sentinel. He's just a pain to get through. But Lando, you can't just like shove a lightsaber on and just be like, okay, we're good. It's just
Yeah, I my thing is you have to have both units on both sides, and so you have to be able to play them, and you don't get a discount. So, and you got to spend a cost to give the shield, right? So, like, to me, his ability is like irrelevant. Period.
I don't know. There's a lot of times I have like one resource left over, and like if I'm running specifically things that need shields, like I would in a Lando deck, I don't think it's terrible. I just don't think he's great. Tragically.
JJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, considering even when you play him as a pilot, I mean, he's a +5/+5, which is pretty decent. But you take a look at other leaders like Luke Skywalker, for instance, that's a 4/5, and he's dealing damage to another unit, and it requires a lot less hurdles to make it work. Like Lando, unfortunately, right now is just suffering from just the lack of efficiency that he naturally has on his card there. I mean, really great pilot, possibly, but deploying on a 7 is tough already. Yeah, just not going to see much play. He's definitely a D tier for me as well.
All right. Well, that was an easy one. Jeez.
I was about to say,
yeah.
Do you guys have any other D tier leaders? I know it's Tanner's turn. I'm just questioning.
I got to go through them again. I got to see.
I do not personally. I like Asajj is the next closest to the D tier, I would say, for me. But I just don't think that
right?
Yeah, I don't think she's actually a D tier. I put Asajj in what I would consider the C tier. I do think there is some play with her because you get to do the damage. If you do, you could do another damage, and so she does work really well with grit. But I also have like I also have whatchamacallit, what's his face? Grand Inquisitor, right? Like the advantage she gets is she's a pilot. So I think for her cost coming out at 6 is like a struggle. And I think if she was a 5 cost, we'd be having a different conversation. I actually would probably bump her up to an A tier. I think she just that one extra resource, like put her it just, even if you had to bump her stats down a tiny bit, she gets crit, right? But like by the time you hit 6 costs, there's so much that could just take care of her at this point. Like, and if you're playing against an aggro deck, they're probably pretty close to totaling your base out. I don't think you want to play her in a mono blue version. I didn't find that very fun at all. And I don't feel like she fits very well into the yellow color either, sadly enough. So like I've played her with green and I played her with red, and I've found okay success with red and not very much with green. So I place her, I say it's a C tier. She's definitely, I don't put a lot of stuff in D tier personally, but I don't feel she's a D tier. I feel there's some stuff that you can do with her. And I do think she'll be good in like sealed. Like I do think can be a decent player in sealed for you. But
yeah, I have her exactly in the middle of my C tier because I have 5 C tier people because I'm not exactly sure exactly everything I want to do. So
yeah, I kind of agree with you guys. I have her in a C tier as well. Yep.
Okay. Well, that was easy too. See, look, I told you maybe we're all agreeing on things that we shouldn't agree on. So, all right, next up.
So I'll take Admiral Akbar. So him, I have him actually in the C tier as well. It was a tough choice, but essentially you have to pay a resource in order to use his ability. And exhausting a leader unit for 1 resource is cool, but you're also giving them an X-Wing token on top of that as well. If you have enough of your own tokens where you can exhaust them just to create an additional token, then you might get something out of that, but that's just takes a lot of resource and time and action in order for you to successfully pull it off. And for that, again, it's just one of those things that you just got to put in a lot of effort in order to make his leader ability work. And he's not giving you much else for it. So for that, I think he's better than a D tier, but I have him at a C tier, a low C for sure.
Yeah, I actually have him at the bottom of my C tier.
Yeah.
I had him tied with someone else, but his artwork is atrocious, so I moved him below.
Oh my
A
god.
different leader. No, I like exhausting something for one resource isn't bad by any means. Giving him an X-Wing token can kind of be inconsequential depending on the deck. I just also think he's like, what am I going to do with a 3/8 that comes out on 6, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
he's okay. If it wasn't like the current crop of leaders with this, I think he'd be better. But yeah, I just have him at like my bottom C tier because I don't see too much coming from him. I guess. I mean, like you get cool stuff with Home One, and there's other combos there, but that could be other people too.
Yeah, like for me, I wish that officials, right, like official units that have the keywords can be deployed like on capital ships, like specifically. I think that would be a lot better for them to be attached on there instead of like a fighter pilot. But yeah, it is what it is. Maybe on future iterations or future sets, we may get something like that. So.
Or more cards where it's like, hey, if your opponent has more space units or more units than you do X, like he'll be a lot better. But they could reveal more of those. Maybe it would make sense if they actually had some more in this set. But I don't know. What's your opinion, Tanner?
I don't know. The for me, the hard thing is to know whether it's worth them getting that X-Wing out there. Like it feels like it's bad because it allows them to put a pilot on it, right? Like, so you're giving them and like if you're a villain, like if I'm Vader and you just gave me an X-Wing that's now a 2/2, I'm not super unhappy about that, like at all, actually. So I don't think there's enough cards. I think this is like, to me, this is like the Afra feel that we had, right? Like I don't have the ability to utilize at current state. I don't believe we have the ability to utilize him properly. And I'm guessing we're going to get a couple other cards, or maybe next year when set rotation happens, he'll become a lot stronger because of the fact that we won't have some of these other like early pilots. But like, I don't know. It seems very bad to give your opponent a unit. Like, I don't know. I don't understand the design space around it, I guess. So I put him in C as well. Just because of that, to me, like I don't understand the design space. I can't simply say that he's not worth it because there is some synergy in some of the cards that is out there, but it's a very unique style deck, and I don't know if I want to play that deck. So
it's fair.
All right, what's the next one, Alex?
I will also. I mean, I'm just going up, right? So let's another leader that I don't think is terribly controversial to put in C tier is Rose Tico. I don't think she's awful by any means. Her ability is unfortunately very situational because you have to attack with the vehicle first and then heal 2 damage from it, which isn't great. 4/6 is a pretty decent stats for a 5, though. Like we said that with Bosk, and he's just kind of annoying sometimes. And her leader flip on attack, heal 2 damage from a vehicle is pretty nice. Well, that's about as much as she got going for her. She's not the worst blue hero leader in this set. That's a positive.
So I believe inside of a vacuum that at least at minimum in draft or like a sealed environment, I think she's like super good.
Yeah, unlimited. I agree. I think she'd be solid, like Jenner.
Yeah.
So.
I do just, I don't know. how about this? I don't actually. I don't. This. I think I would put her at the high end of the C. It's at minimum. I guess that's at minimum. Like I almost consider her a low B, and for the pure fact that I do actually like. I like her stat line. I like there's a lot of synergy aspects to her. She comes out one cheaper than like Obi-Wan does. She's a little bit more conditional than Obi-Wan, but if you're gonna run a space deck, I feel she's actually very decently good in space, and I think there's enough stuff for her to be able to heal. Like we discounted Obi-Wan a little bit last set, and I feel bad because actually Obi-Wan was a lot better than what we gave him credit for. I feel Rose, because this set is a pilot vehicle style set, I actually feel that there's more to Rose than there. So personally, I would put her at the low end of B, but it doesn't matter. Like it could sit at the high end of C too.
If it was any
Yeah.
vehicle and not one that just attacked this turn, I would totally agree. It's just that's such a limiting factor.
So I kind of agree more with Tanner that this is a low B, and the reason for that is that even though you don't have currently right now a good amount of vehicles that can straight out like ambush, and then you can use your ability to like immediately heal, assuming that that vehicle survives. You still have a very decent amount of ships right now, both in ground and space, that you can use your ability to trigger on, even if you're not pulling pilots on it. Although it is more ideal to put pilots on a lot of those ships. It definitely has its uses, and you do have enough sentinel pieces in space in order for you to take advantage of it. And you also have other units that just straight out just like to be an aggressive piece. Anything that has overwhelm, that has high enough health, I think she would keep them alive over time. Just being able to constantly demolish like weaker token units that your opponent might put out there. You can consistently get out a lot of damage out there and constantly heal them for that. So she is just going to get better with time as we get more and more vehicle units out there. But I think that she definitely is going to be a lower B tier. So I think that she has a space to grow for sure.
Yeah. So we're going to leave her at the top end of C for now, and then as we go through the rest of them, if we feel like you're like, oh, I would never play this over her, and it hits a B tier, that she's kind of my benchmark between the two.
Fair enough. Blue aspect, you don't get a lot of things like ambush or right. Like you're not. It's more of like defending. Like if you play a Concord Dawn Interceptor, they swing into it. That's cool. You still can't heal it. You need to attack with it first, and that's kind of. It seems a little bit too slow for like the healing to benefit, right? Because you have a Concord Dawn Interceptor, they hit it, you claim, then you swing with it, and they kill your Concord Dawn Interceptor because you didn't have a chance to heal yet.
Yeah.
So that's just my train of thought.
No, and I agree. I think we'll see. Like I said, we'll come back to her towards the end and see if she fits somewhere else. So. All right, so I'm going to pick Rio next because Rio is the controversial one that I've argued with people on the internet about. I give Rio a solid B, and I feel we could almost move him closer to an A tier, but I haven't spent enough time testing with him. But I love Rio, and it's not because I like this character. That's like Thrawn. Like when we have to rate Thrawn, that's probably when we'll all disagree. Because we all know Thrawn's just S tier.
But one of us will disagree with the other two.
But I feel Rio because Rio has Saboteur. The way his ability works, it's not like you have to do something first and then that you just get to swing in. It's like kind of a easier breaking in that's just built in, and it is, yes, only one unit a turn, blah blah blah. I get that, but I think because he comes out I guess
on a 5.
On a 5, so he's not like a super fast like, oh my gosh, here's a great like aggro, but when he comes out, he still is a 3/5 no matter where you put him. And he gets Saboteur if he's on the ground. So if they throw the one lonely sentinel, he just can ignore it. He kills shields. He makes whatever unit you put it on even better. And there is quite a few transport units. So we already talked a little bit about this, and I think that stupid Super Ion card with him works even silly more better. Like that's not a word, but whatever. Sorry, but if that card actually makes his deck feel better. And so I think if we don't have any Sentinels and everybody stops playing Sentinels and everybody's just going straight aggro, we're just going to blow each other's base up, he's a little bit less than needed. But my belief is that because this set is pushing aggro so hard, that we're going to see more Sentinels come out, is going to be a bigger thing. People are going to want that. And like, he's the leader that I would like to draft. If I'm playing draft or sealed, this is the leader I want. But I easily give him high B tier. Borderline. I think borderline A. I think I test a little bit more, but I feel that's where he comes out for me.
Yeah, for me, I was kind of like debating putting him between A and B as well, just because of the utility that he offers for Saboteur. Probably as we get more vehicle units out there, he'll probably just get better. But right now, I'm holding him at a high B conservatively, just because, at the moment right now, you're only as good as the amount of utility you get out that particular unit. I mean, sure, you're not always going to need to use Sabotage. Just getting that buff alone is just enough. But yeah, I mean, just overall, just his ability is just useful all around, and there are a lot of strong space units that can really take advantage of it, and just deal a ton of damage to your opponent's base, and your opponent has to deal with that, and you can easily run away with the game if they don't. So, I put this in a high B.
I think high B is a little bit excessive with him. I think mostly the boon is that his stats are really big for being a 5-drop. It's also, if you attach it to transport, giving it +4, +5 is really, really good. But like +3, +5 seems to be actually just like a little bit high, because like Wedge is a 3/4 for 5. I mean, he has other things going on there. Luke's a 4/5 for 6. Like, he seems to have stats that more represent 6-cost leaders. But also, the problem is that, like, I think he's fine in a vacuum. It's just like, how do you justify playing Rio over something like Django or CAD, right? That's my main thing with it. Like, the Saboteur is pretty nice. I'm sure people will play Sentinels in space, or just in general. I just don't think a high B is like decent. Also, spending a resource to give the +1 is a little bit iffy. Like, Ahsoka's is conditional as well, just having the coordinate for the +1, but like, you don't see her being played much. I'm not sure if the +1 attack is enough to do something crazy for me to run over something like a Django or a Cat or like an Asajj even for yellow villainy.
Fair enough. All right, what's the next one, Alex?
Oh, speaking of yellow villainy, let's just do Trench. He's right there. I have no idea how to evaluate him at all. He's super wonky. How do I put a tier ranking on a leader that could continue coming out? So I gave him somewhere in like the mid-C. Just because you do have to spend 3 resources to bring him out once you have 6. And like the weird infinite combo is kind of wonky, but like his ability isn't fantastic. It's not bad. It lets you turbo through your deck more. I just don't know really how much to evaluate him, so I'm just like, I don't know, C tier. We'll figure out later. I don't know how much value I can put on a leader that you have to pay 3 to continue coming out.
Yeah, so far we found it's not super impactful. Like we did build a swarm, like a swarm vulture deck with him, and it was actually did decently well. But you have to be able to live long enough to be able to get that, right? And Like the combo thing is cool, and if you can live that long, the combo thing, which we'll do a video on later this week, like that's crazy. But I agree. I put him mid C. I don't. I think Rose is technically overall better than him personally. But I would play him over Asajj. But that's also because I'm partial to him as the character of the show. So like I'm a little partial to him comparatively. So
For me, Mitzi, I think building your deck that can really take advantage of his ability just helps you be more consistent. Just being able to get more the cards that you need at the right time using his ability is very strong. Just being able to draw more out of it. The negative effect of accidentally milling yourself to deck is a possibility, but I kind of agree with you guys. For me, he just felt like a C tier right now, like a mid C, just because he does have that high ceiling of being able to potentially come out multiple times, which could be strong. But it just really, really depends on how you built out that deck. So, I mean, if I'm going to decide between playing him or playing Wedge, I'm going to play Wedge. So, yeah.
all right. All right, JJ, what's your next one?
Wedge Antilles. I'm going to take him. He is a high B for me. He is very simple. You spend an action, play a card from your hand that using piloting, and it costs one less. Anytime you have an ability that lets you play more higher cards or even more cards on your side and build up your forces faster than your opponent, it's going to put a lot of pressure on your opponent to try to deal with that. If you could do it early on and your opponent can't catch up, you're going to win games. You're going to be able to aggressively go after your opponent's base, and your opponent has to react more to that, especially if they're spending more resources to try to catch up to the amount of forces that you're putting out there for less of cost. And then when you factor in other cards that help you reduce that cost even further, Wedge's efficiency in putting out units for cheaper gets better and better. He does come out on 5 cost. He doesn't give that much big of a buff in terms of stats, a +3, +4, but still, just having that consistency of getting that discount to play out more pilots and stuff is really good.
You like him better than Rio?
He's below Rio just slightly for me.
Alex?
Oh, you go first, man. I want to hear your opinion first.
I don't. I originally was very high on him. I don't feel as high on him as I did before. And it's only for the pure fact of, I guess it works very well, like if you could get the Chewbacca combo aspect down. But like the problem I have is like it's still, I'm paying for it a little bit cheaper, which is nice. But I haven't found enough stuff to like swarm the board with it. And by the time he comes out, he's not effective in closing the game. So I found I've had to play him in more of a mid-range deck, and I found that the discounts aren't as big as I thought they would be. Like I actually just like the Boba indirect damage so much better than this. Like, or like the Han being able to boost stuff. I have found that I don't care very much for Wedge personally. And maybe that's just because Poe comes out and Poe can work with ECL and Wedge can't. So I mean, I guess he could if he want to play double. So I put him. I'll stick with the B, and that's fine with me. But that's about where I leave him personally.
Yeah, I had him as like high B, low A kind of thing. Mostly just because in green there's a lot of like really solid pilots and a lot that you can play for pretty cheap. Because I just think things like Nine Knob and like the clone pilot that's like just +2/+2 for 2. I think those are like solid enough. Obviously, if your opponent controls your vehicles, Wedge does significantly worse, as would be expected. But I think there's a lot of just like really solid, very cheap pilots that you can put in. It's like, I don't know. I'm not sure if Wedge is like aggro. I think what you're going on with like more mid range, but also like like how Luke was mid-range, right? If you play like Green Luke, you get the Alliance Dispatcher in there. Paying 1 less for something is very strong. So if you have like decent statted units that you're kind of playing on curve or like one under the curve, but attaching to a pilot, so now they're above curve, seems pretty good to me. But also, I don't test any new decks out by any means. So
yeah, I will say, like, I don't know. I feel like the Boba Fett 2 from set 2 like just feels better than Wedge. Like, sadly enough, like I would almost just rather play him than Wedge, but I do get the discounted. So I'll leave him in B. I'm gonna keep him under Rio though for now. So all right, am I next? All right, I'm gonna pick Vader, and I'm gonna put Vader in A. So I'm just gonna take Vader and say I feel Vader's an A. I feel Vader works very well in Swarm decks. I feel Vader works decently in like a tempo deck, and I feel Vader has worked very well in kind of a mid-range deck. Maybe I just like Vader. And I'm very excited that we get another Vader and they aren't going to get rid of him out of the game. Maybe I'm a little excited because it's very Destiny feel that we got before they canceled Destiny, and we got a Vader pilot that I loved. I don't know, but I found that like I originally thought it was dumb to be able to just like, oh no, I can poop out a tie thing, but some of the stuff that they've given us, like you could play the upgrade, it creates a tie, and that costs you 1. You can play the Kimaji tie fighters, and that creates another tie. And like, I think if we like, there's a few cards that could just demolish the deck, but like they're not played yet. So if they become played, then whatever. Then I think you have to change the strategy up. But I have played them like in the red version, a little bit more of a tempo-y mid-range deck, and there's quite a few things you can do with him. I haven't gotten him to work with the Vulture Swarms yet, but one of these days I'm going to get that to work too. But I don't know. I tried Triple Dark Raid for a while, and it's fun, but it's not as fun as just shitting out like 10 TIE fighters and having 10 TIE fighters sit on board. That's fun.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I have Vader in like B. I don't have him in super high up. Swarming things is fun. If you swarm too much and that becomes like a thing in the meta, people just, I don't know, like Disruptive Burst or something, right? Just kill every single TIE token.
Yeah.
Or clear the field or whatever. Your choice of color. There's ways of getting around all that stuff. The stat boost though is huge, and even like a 5/6 leader for 6 isn't atrocious. Like if you're just gonna put them on the ground. But the +5/+5 and create 2 TIE fighter tokens seems pretty good.
Yeah.
JJ, do you have an opinion on Vader?
No, I definitely have him in a high B tier, lower A tier, because again, just having more units on the board is always good. Anything that can force your opponent to have to deal or mitigate with the added units that are out there on the board is always a good thing, because that's less damage going to your base. It allows you to play a lot more aggressively too, just to force your opponent to deal with it as well. So for me, that's always good. I think when you start factoring in other cards that help you make those ties better, or attack more stronger, it just gets even better, and it requires less effort on your part to do so. So yeah, I think I'm probably going to stick with a high B, conservatively, but definitely feels like this could be an A.
All right, you guys are killing.
I have him as like solid, like mid to low B, for what it's worth. However you want to factor that into whatever calculations you're doing over there.
The calculation is he goes down to B tier, and that's about it. That he's going to be the top B tier, in my opinion, because I would put him in A. All right, let's move on. What's the next one?
Oh, we'll do something weird. Let's do Captain Phasma.
All right.
All
cool.
right.
I have Phasma somewhere in like mid C, maybe like a little bit higher up in C. Um, I think it really depends on the quality of the first order cards that we get in this set. Again, we have like 75 whatever cards left over, so it's hard to evaluate anything. But I feel like if I'm going to play a very aggressive red villain leader, I would choose 2 to 3 other ones before Phasma, right? Um, so I'm not sure if it's crazy controversial to put her in C. I just don't think like the verse side's fine, like her leader side's fine, right? Because you're doing direct damage to a base, which is really really good. But the flip side is okay. 4/6 for 5 is solid. We were just talking about it with Rose. I just think she suffers a little bit from just being another aggressive red villainy leader. But this one requires you to play tribal.
Yeah, I had this as a mid C. I think currently, right now, the first order cards that we have available just don't make her as strong as she needs to be in order for her to reliably be aggressive enough to be a threat on it. I mean, you can probably get a solid deck of about 40 first order cards, and then the rest you kind of have to like really scrounge around to see what else can work with it. But at that point, you're kind of hampering yourself if you're really leaning into first order right now. It will get better with time. And I am sad that she can't deploy as a pilot because she is a TIE SF pilot. But I mean, yeah, just with time, she'll get better. But right now, she's about a mid C.
Yeah, see, I put her higher. I would put her in B personally, but I put her higher than Rose. But that's only because she can combo with green really well. Outside of green, she doesn't work very well right now. JJ, what's the next one?
So the next one here that I'm going to bring up is going to be Boba Fett, since we're apparently all choosing red this round. So Boba Fett for me, really strong. I'm actually going to put him as an A for here. He absolutely can do a lot of work. He does deploy in 6, and he's only a 4/4 for that, so that is a little bit of a drawback. But his ability to deal indirect damage to a player consistently is really good. And he has a lot of different options that he can in red that helps deal even more indirect damage and control that as well. I think he is a much more efficient leader in terms of dealing out damage to a lot of units, and you can really take advantage of that and just basically clear your opponent's side if they're deciding to distribute that damage to their units, or if you're going to the base, they're making your job easier. For me, Boba is an A.
Let's see, where did I have Boba? I have him as my highest B tier leader. Mostly because games end pretty quick when you put indirect damage on your base, and if you put it on units, when he flips, he kills a lot of them. And there's a bunch of other cards that just, I see you're down to 1 or 2 health. Here's a Daring Raid, or here's an IG 2000 or whatever.
Grenade Strike.
Yeah, or Grenade Strike. Like it's easy to like clean up after that if they start taking damage on their units. And I think he goes pretty fast. But I don't think he's like A tier. The +4/+4 for 6 isn't
The best
in line with the other ones. Yeah. What do you have, Tanner?
I don't know. Like I kind of feel closer. I don't know. I like Vader better than him, but I know you don't. I would put Vader over him personally myself, but I don't know. I feel he's an A, even if he's maybe at the lower end of the A tier too. I actually kind of like that he has the ability to have 3 different colors that work with him. He works very well with mono red, and he works with green, and I have seen him work decently with yellow. Do I want to play him over Django? Probably not, though. But at the same token, I prefer the indirect damage route, and there's like his ability is actually very relevant. I have gotten his ability off every turn, like no questions asked. So I don't know. I personally, I kind of feel he's A tier, but we could put him down in B tier, I suppose. Oh yeah, at this rate, it feels like Alex has 0 S tier and like 2 A tier. That's what
Do you
this
guys
feels like.
have S tier leaders?
Yes.
Oh,
What is
see, I
wrong
ranked
with
it as
you?
high as A.
Yeah, well, how do you even
That's my bad.
not have an S tier leader in this set, like already picked out?
Okay. Well, I do.
Well, maybe that's why. Yeah, I think a majority of my leaders are in C and like a little bit into B tier, which I don't know, seems like a normal curve. That's how they kind of work. I don't think anything's like, I only think there's maybe 2 tier leaders currently. So I don't know.
I'm gonna leave him in A. I'm gonna leave him in A. I side with JJ on this one, so let's keep going.
Well,
Oh, is it my turn?
Yeah.
It's your turn. Yeah.
All right, so here you go. Here will be controversial. I'm going to put Kaz in S tier. There you go, Alex. That's my S tier that I have up there. I feel Kaz is insanely good. I've already started building around him. I believe that he will get better every single set, and I feel that he is just super, super strong. His ability and his stats for 4 cost just makes him super good. Like, I could be wrong. He could be the Lando of the smuggle set, right? No, could be, but like he's a hero, yellow, and he has access to all sorts of great stuff. So there you go. There's my S tier. You know what my S tier is.
So I'm a lot lower on him. I think he is a solid B. The reason for that is number one, yes, he can deploy on 4 and he's a +3/+3. The friendly units that loses all abilities that surround and take an extra turn is nice because you can essentially not waste a turn having to use his ability, so it's very versatile. But beyond that, you're targeting 1 friendly unit per turn, and if you're putting out multiple units out there, especially as you get into the later rounds, your opponent can easily mitigate that if they're able to reliably take out that particular unit out there. Gets a little harder as you get towards like some of the larger, stronger units, but at that point it kind of reduces Kaz's effectiveness. Now, that's being said, now where we have less units that Kaz can really take advantage of, he can definitely grow into an A tier pilot with more pilots or with more ships that can really benefit from his ability. Definitely having a really good bounty deck on this as well could be really strong. But again, you run into the issue that if you're playing multiple units, or if you have multiple units out on the board, your opponent is always going to choose the one that you don't use Kaz's ability on. And if they can gain an advantage out of that, then they absolutely will. So your opponent has a little more control at that point for that. So it just depends on how you play it. Again, it comes down to how efficient can you be with it. He is really strong, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's going to be an S tier. I think he's more of a solid B for me.
Joke's on you guys. I actually have him in A tier, so I split the difference there.
Nice.
I think he's got potential, turning off like negative abilities, like playing a cartel turncoat for turn 1 and then, having it go into something a 2/3 and then not collect the bounties, pretty nice. Obviously we still have the fireball stuff, the contracted hunter, the Millennium Falcon. There's some things that have negative side effects. I mean, like that AT hauler is just like stable in those decks. And I like the 4 cost +3/+3 is really nice. But again, I don't think anything is like you can't call an S tier leader right now, especially we got a lot more cards revealed. I think he's solid.
You're all killed. I'm gonna leave him in S tier for now, and then we'll circle
Whatever.
we'll circle back around at the end. All right, Alex, you're up. Which one do you want?
We didn't do Von Reg, did we?
We did not.
No, we
let's
have
do
not.
Von Reg. I have him in low B. Well, mid-ish to low B. Again, it's mostly because he comes out on 4 and he gives +3/+3. The action ability is kind of like you're still playing a vehicle, so it's still not like it's not inefficient, but it's not like efficient. It is you're just playing whatever you're playing that turn. Now something else gets +1, +0. Hopefully they don't kill it. But I think it's just the +3/+3. I like him a lot more than Phasma. He's kind of like a Kylo to me, but it's also like, well, the red villainy. You have Kylos, you have Boba, and all that other stuff. So
You like him more than Wedge or less than Wedge?
I like a lot less than Wedge.
Okay,
I have
All
Wedge
right.
in A tier, so
Yeah.
like lowish A, high B, like A-, B+, whatever.
For me, I have him as a mid B, mainly because in order for you to really take advantage of his ability, you just have to set yourself up to make sure that you have a vehicle available out there. Now, with the plethora of vehicles that we have currently, both for ground and space, it's not going to be as hard to do so. But he really wants to have units that can either be saboteurs or have overwhelm in order to really push the damage into the opponent's base. There's not a lot of great ways to do that without having a lot of setup. So it gets a little more complex, but if everything goes right in a magical Christmas land, like Harry Nick says, then yeah, you can absolutely do a lot of work with Von Reg there. But probably will get better as you get more cards out there. But for me, it's just a solid mid B for me.
That's fine. I'll stick with that. I don't really have any other arguments. Like
Yeah.
I think that he's a solid character. So
It's like it's just hard to deal with a unit that like essentially is a 7/7 on turn 3 in space,
Yeah.
right? Like if you put him in his TIE fighter or
Yeah.
the BA. So seems solid. I like him more than Phasma.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Actually, I think there's more uses for the Phasma.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna pick Poe next, and I'm gonna put Poe in A tier. I think Poe is nuts because Poe has the ability to deploy multiple times in different ways. Some of the cards that have come with him make him very valuable. He is like his deck can replace the Sabine-ish style thing that you don't get if we don't want to deal with the Sabine anymore. Like this gives you a very versatile style aggro deck. I think he's solid all around as an A. I like him a little bit better than Boba Fett. How about that, Alex?
I also have him in A tier. I think I actually have him ranked as the highest pilot on my list, or highest leader. Not technically multiple deploy, technically only deploy once, but you can eject him a couple different times, so he can be a ground leader earlier. I just think as the spend an action, give a unit +1 or +2/+1 this phase essentially, and then swing in is pretty solid.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely a mid A for me. Just being able to have full utility and bonus. There's no downside to Poe for him, and he's good on the ground, and he's great as an upgrade in space. And there's a lot of different units that would love to have bonuses for having upgrades on them. So, or having a pilot upgrade them. So, this has a lot of utility all the way around, and yeah, just solid.
It's cool that you can daisy chain them.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, who's next?
All right, so I'm gonna take Luke Skywalker. So he is an A pilot for me. I actually have him rated higher than Poe for the sole reason that you can deal damage consistently with Luke. Again, very easy to build a fighter deck, just all around. You can really control your opponent's side by constantly putting out damage out there. And there's a lot of great ways to take advantage of that damage and just clear out the board, forcing your opponent to react to what you're doing, and you can attack him there. He's very, very consistent. It's not very hard to have just fighters all around, and with the amount of great pilots that the Rebels have to help complement that play and basically clear the board in order for them to go in and do extra stuff. Luke is a powerhouse, honestly. Deploying with a 6 with a 4/5, pretty decent, and with his ability, you can do a lot of work with him. So I have him at a high A.
Can I be controversial and say I don't like Luke?
I don't think that's a controversial statement, Tanner.
Okay, I don't know. I guess I haven't heard anybody like don't feel he's as good as like we thought he was good. He is. Like I definitely do not think he's A tier in any way, shape, at all. Like I will take Vader over him every day of the week. Personally, I would take Rio. I would probably take Wedge over Luke at this point. Like I would put him at the end of B tier, and I could even be convinced to throw him in C tier at this point. I do think that there is some uses for him. You are right, JJ. It is nice to be able to do the extra ping damage, but I have Sabine if I just want to do I want to do damage. I got Sabine. I don't know. I find him like the way I feel like if he came out on 5 costs, I think I would be swayed to be a little bit different. But like he feels to me like kind of like Bo from set 2. Like and like I consider her C tier. So I would compromise and put him on the low end of B, but I don't feel he has any place in an A in an A.
Yeah, I have him in like not the most bottom B tier, but not like somewhere between middle and the lowest B tier. Mostly for what Tanner was saying, like the 4/5 is really good. Can't being defeated by anything that's not like bamboozle is really nice. It's just, worst case scenario, it is like Bo-Katan, right? Where it's like, hey, we got a bunch of Mandos. I attack with a Mando, I can do one more damage somewhere. If I attack with the fighter, I can do one more damage somewhere. He's good at clearing things out, which is fair. But I'm not sure how well you're able to stabilize in faster games with him. And that's kind of my main problem with him. And then if you're going against control, then they just kill the fighters. Like he's literally not doing anything, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's a little bit of a weird situation. I mean, there's a bunch of great fighters out there, for sure. So like, I don't think he's gonna be useless or anything. I just don't think he's like an A tier leader. But I also have like 3 or 4 A tier leaders. So I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit more picky than you guys.
All right, so well, this one's all off. Like, where are we gonna put Luke? JJ wants him as the best character in the game.
Well, both you and I said like bottom B tier, right? So I don't know, somewhere in B to kind of average it out. That's what it seems to me.
Mid B sounds good.
Who's next?
I'm gonna go with Han Solo. Odd Han. I like him, but I don't think he's incredible. I have him as like my last B tier leader, or like highest C tier leader kind of thing. I don't think it's terribly difficult to build a deck around there, especially if you have multiple different cost units out there that you can choose which one doesn't cost the same for the extra attack. And you get the attack immediately, so that's nice. And then re-readying resources is pretty strong. And +3/+4 seems pretty in line with what they're giving 5 cost leaders. So he seems fine. One of the biggest drawbacks is that he's a yellow hero leader. The biggest drawback is that his subtitle is not the other one. It's just hard to justify playing him over like other Han unless you're doing some maybe crazy aggro things.
All right, JJ.
So I have him as a mid B, mainly because he has that gambling aspect where it may or may not pay off, but if it does, great. Always having the ability to attack with the unit while you're doing your action is pretty great, especially when you're looking at the top of your deck. It really combos well with like C3PO, for instance. It does play with the dynamic of like gambling, which is really great. And you can always tailor your deck to always have an odd cost on your deck so that we can get that off more reliably on there. I like him deploying as well on a 5 as a 3/4 with his ability as well. Obviously, really meant to go on a Millennium Falcon, but just not as efficient as the other Han. So yeah, I agree with Alex's point there. It's just it's hard to kind of justify that. It feels like he doesn't have the same consistency, and you have to really work to get a really good consistent game out of this particular Han. But if you like to gamble, I mean, this definitely fits the bill. But for me, it's about a mid B for me.
So I do like to gamble. So I have him in A tier. I have him on the low end of A tier. I think he is in par with a different style version. Like I think Vader's A tier, and I think Han is the next one next to. I think that's what I personally think. But you could build a deck, JJ, with all odd costs, and you're not gambling anymore. So
yeah, but your opponent also has to have an odd cost in order for you to get the +1 as well.
no, you do not.
No, you reveal a top card of your deck and then attack with a unit. If the revealed card and the unit have different odd costs, the unit gets +1/+0.
Oh, okay, yeah, I misread that. You're right. You're absolutely right. Never mind.
I was like, I don't know about that. I was like I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
it doesn't do that.
Yeah, I mean it's not hard to build a deck that's like 1, 3, 5s, and 7s. It's just you also kind of miss out a lot, honestly.
Yeah.
I'll leave them mid B.
All right.
All right.
So I'm not going to touch Thrawn because I'm going to leave you with that first. So let's see here. I'm going to go all the way up to Admiral Piet. So
I think there's only 2 left, right?
yeah, exactly. So Admiral Piet, I think is a solid B. He has the ability to, really do well with capital ships. Very thematic on there. The only drawback to him is just kind of ramping up to get to that point where he can be very, very effective. Not being able to deploy him for something that could be really effective. When he deploys on a 5, he's a 2/7, so it's not the greatest in terms of offense. I've seen some decks where they can do really, really well. It's a nice like control type or mid range style, I would say. Type decks for Piet that can do okay, but kind of really falters against some of the more aggressive decks that can take out like his base within 4 to 5 turns. So for me, he just fits that mid B tier. But I do admit he's probably better than what I'm rating him, just because I've only seen one style list with Piet, and I think that with experimentation he could be better. But from what I've seen, he's about a B.
You don't want to know my rating.
I have him as an A. It's like my bottom A, but I have him as an A. Mostly because you can do ramp things in green. And with him, it's really nice. Especially with the resupply carrier, the ramp capital ship. Because you can do something like turn 1, do whatever with Piet, right? Like turn 2, the resupply. Turn 3, you can use his ability to play the resupply carrier and then ramp more. So then you're at 6. Next turn you go to 7. He's deployed, and then you can play like a relentless or something, right, with his ability or something that kind of obscene like that, which seems pretty good. I mean, it has to line up, but it doesn't have to. It's not like a crazy hard target to line up. I just think he's pretty solid. Just between like, I mean, he's just a ramp guy. Just ramp and play big, fun ships, and I kind of like that a lot.
So I have him in S tier. So there you go. That's where I originally put him. I think he's S tier personally. Alex doesn't believe in S tier, but
Oh,
to
S tier
me,
is outside the bounds of a tier list.
So hang on, you're saying that he is better than Emperor Palpatine?
yes.
Oh, I don't know, man.
Yes, 100%. I think he's better than Emperor Palpatine. I think Palp's good. Palp's fun. Palp's thematic. But Piat's like, I don't know. We got a lot of good capital ships. And no, I'm not running the stupid Outlaw Corona ship anymore, by the way. I stopped running that. I know everybody thought that was super fun to play on turn 1, but it's not fun to play on turn 1 when they just kill it and then they get to ramp more than you get to. So I stopped playing that. I decided that was worth it in the long run. But
I would put Architens in there because I could just start.
I do.
Absorbing.
I run 3 Architens. My flip turn is flipping and ambushing an Architon to be able to ramp again. That's typically when I move him. I have found that the reason I say he hits that S tier is I think he has play in every color. Blue, in my opinion, is his weakest color. So, though I could be convinced green could possibly be the weakest color, but I really like I've had extreme success in both red and yellow. So I'll leave him at the top of A for you, but I feel he's close to S tier. So
All right, give us Thrawn, man.
Well, I'm not gonna say S tier because I told you I only had 2 S tiers. So I feel Thrawn is in the A tier. I actually personally like Vader better, but Thrawn is more my play style. So I put Thrawn in an A tier because there is a lot of synergy with when defeated type stuff. I do think that he can rival Iden in the healing department if I want to play like blue-green control. I do think that he works pretty decent actually in yellow as well. Though the green is the obvious build that people are probably going to go with, or red. But I feel because he has at least, we'll say at least 2 colors he works good with.
Yeah.
I tried blue. It's fun, but it's not. I haven't had good success with it. So
yeah, I prefer him in a blue green, and I think he is definitely an A tier leader just because there's so many different interactions with when defeated. I mean, you have a lot of great, especially with the last revealed cards. Green, I think, is probably the best color right now for Thrawn. Although red is a very close second. Just being able to trigger those undefeated stuff allows you to really take advantage of like turning the tide, especially cards that help you bring out more units or bring units for cheaper, or deal additional damage or other stuff. Just gives you that control that you need there, right? And your opponent, if they're not prepared for it or don't have the extra resources to combat it, or at least waylay stuff away, so that way you're not taking full advantage of those when defeated, it can be really difficult for your opponent to recover from. Essentially, they're basically free actions almost from what you're doing with a lot of those when defeateds on there. So yeah, for me, he is definitely a high A.
Alex,
I have him in B.
I figured
the high B. Yeah, I mean, cool. You get the double collect on when defeated, and you can like get that to work and whatnot. I just don't think nothing else is terribly special about it. Like a 4/7 for 6 isn't. It's an okay body, but like, I don't think it does anything crazy. I get that he can heal pretty well, which is nice, especially for blue. But like, so can all the blue leaders. I just don't think he like stands out significantly more than someone like Iden, right? I guess that's a pretty close comparison if you're trying to go for control. right? Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, do you like Thrawn more than? Do you think Thrawn would be a better play than like Kira?
In a more of an aggro scene, yes, just because of the healing. Outside of that, no, I feel Kira's a better leader, but I also rank Kira in the A's. So Kira was like my A S tier when she came out. So, which I was not 100% incorrect. Um, so, no, I think if everything goes aggro, I think Thrawn is probably better than being able to deal with Kira, because Kira's leader neutralizes the big threats on the board and then allows you to stabilize. Like Thrawn doesn't do that. He doesn't have a neutralize ability or stabilize ability in the aspect of like a big swing type thing, but he does heal a lot of damage over the course of things. So, all right. Well, this was our combined tier list. So what I will tell you what we'll do is, so I know Alex already made a tier list. Did you already made a tier list, didn't you?
I mean, I like had a notepad with the things
Okay.
that I kind of ranked them. Nothing.
And then JJ had a tier list. So what we'll do is I'll create a stream doc here. And what we could do is I'll post all of our individual tier lists for you to argue about, and then I'll post our combined one, and then I'll just know them. And then that way you can see where the difference lies between them and all that fancy stuff.